Hey guys, Lee with LG Speed and Custom here, and in this video we are going to build a Nerf bar for Kirby's 32 Roadster. So this is Kirby's 32 Roadster. Kirby picked this car up a few months back and kind of wants to make it his own now. One of his concerns with this car is he thinks that the back end is just a little too boring looking or a little too plain looking, and he wants to add some pizzazz to it. So we're going to build a 7/8 diameter Nerf bar. 7/8 diameter to match the 4-bar suspension on the front. We're going to chrome it to match the 4-bar suspension on the front. But yeah, just a nice little bar that wraps around this edge here, just to kind of spruce the back up a little bit. So I've already gone ahead and made a paper template of this contour here. So now our next step would be we got to get some 7/8 round stock and bend it up to that shape. Here's our template on the bench here. So I just made a simple tracing of the contour of the body, and then kind of using a straight edge here, broke it down to get some measurements off of it. So our center line is here. We get the big C for center. We are 4 inches in from where our tail, I guess, is gonna wrap around. And I've determined that the body's got just a ever so slight curve, but not enough of a curve that I'm worried about it. So we can pretty much have a straight piece from here, 34 3/8 of an inch to here, and then start our curve here. So 5 inches out, 4 inches in with this radius here. So I think our next step now that we've got kind of a plan or a schematic to go off of is we're going to build some sort of jig, I guess, that we can clamp down to the table and be able to heat and bend our 7/8 bar around. I've never actually bent round bar like this before. I shouldn't say that. I've done it before. I've just never been able to do it successfully. But I'm pretty confident that I can figure it out. I've learned from my mistakes in the past that we can figure it out. So it's going to be fine. I've uploaded a photo of the template onto Fusion 360, and from here we can trace this radius and then cut a piece out that is exactly the same. Here's what I've drawn up. So I didn't follow the line exactly because this was just freehand. As you saw, I just held a Sharpie and traced it. So there's definitely a lot of human error in that. So what I did was just use the circle tool and basically just made a circle until I found one that fit that radius pretty close. I don't think we're gonna notice that little bit of a difference, even if the original body is actually this shape, which I don't know if it is or not, but I don't think it's enough of a difference that you're gonna notice it. So this way we know each side, if I make it out of this using this radius here, each side is gonna be symmetrical, and that, in my opinion, is kind of more important. So let's cut these out and then go from there. So I want this to be 1 inch thick so that our 7/8 tubing sits nice and flat against it. Unfortunately, my plasma cutter is not capable of cutting up to 1 inch thick metal. And I also don't have 1 inch thick plate here, but I've got lots of 1/4 inch. And if you take 4 1/4 inch pieces and stack them up, believe it or not, that makes 1 inch. So I'm gonna cut 8 of them out, I guess, because we need some for each side. So I'll cut 8 of them out, stack them up in groups of 4, just weld them together. They don't need to be super welded, just a couple tacks, probably be fine. And then we've got our radius for our jig figured out. So with all our corner radiuses tacked together to form 1 inch, I've clamped them down on the table here and cut this piece of square tubing to our 34 3/8 dimension, and that is going to give us this part here of the jig. So I'll weld that together now, and I mean, this basically looks like the back of a 32 Ford, right? We're all welded up. I think this is our completed jig now. I ran it through the belt sander and just kind of evened these out a little bit. I've got it welded on all 4 sides here. I don't know if we need a piece across the bottom or not. What I'm thinking is we could lay the round stock in there and then clamp this to it to kind of hold this in place. And I mean, we can only do one side at a time, so we can clamp this side. Heat this and bend this side. Once it's cooled down, move our clamp over here, heat and bend this. I don't know. Like I said, I've never actually successfully done this before, so it's an experiment. Just waiting for Shannon to get back from the metal store with our 7/8 tubing, or not tubing, round stock, and then we can do this. Hi.
Hi, we're listening to baby songs.
Yeah, so Shannon brought us some 7/8 round stock. She got 10 feet of it, so I cut it in half. So I got 2 5-foot sections with the idea that if I screw this one up, I've got another one. And we can do it right the second time. I've got our 5-foot chunk clamped in here. I marked the center line on it. We only need, I think this should be about 48 or 49 inches. So we have extra with the idea that we can take this bar or a piece of tubing and slide over there and then use this little section for leverage to pull this around. I made this a little tiny bit smaller to allow for a little bit of spring back. So I don't know how much spring back we're gonna have. It's a little bit of a guess, I suppose. So I think we'll fire up the torch. I'm gonna use the big rosebud tip. We'll warm this up nice and red hot, probably about here or so, and then slowly just wrap it around and hope it works. So that worked pretty well, I think. Now, if we can duplicate it on that side, I think we'll be okay. I pulled it a little bit further, so once it's all cooled down and stuff, we can just cut that off flush. And then Kirby wants to kind of like bullnose the end a bit, so we can just shape that a bit with the grinder. I think this worked. I think it worked great. I just checked our ends with the angle finder, and this one's at 3.2 and this one's at 3.1, which I'm happy with. That's close enough for me. So I think we'll let this cool down and then pop all our clamps off. Maybe cut our little tails off, and then we can fit it up to the car and see how it looks. I think the issues that I always had before, when I say that I've never successfully done this before, is I never took the time to properly make a jig, and that really made it a lot easier, as well as clamping it down in here. The last time I did this, I wasn't using a rosebud torch. I was just using like a cutting, like oxyacetylene cutting tip, and I don't know if it was getting it hot enough. What would happen is as I was bending it, I wouldn't get a smooth transition. It would be kind of like chonky and different radiuses, and it just, I don't know, it just never worked properly. So, but this did. I am stoked with this. Woo, that's warm. Let's put some gloves on. I think I stuck in here, Jim. Oh, there we go. With this laid back on our template, I've made a mark 1 inch down from where I want it to actually end. And that way we can, you know, kind of fine tune this as we fit it on the car to see, like I said, Kirby wants it bull nose, so we can kind of work that out later. I've cut those ends off 1 inch long, mocked it up on here, and I think it looks okay. It's pretty centered. It's really hard to center this with a tape measure because that's round, that's round, that's round. Everything is round. There's not a square or a straight piece on this car. There's a little bit of a bow this way in the body, which if you get right down this way, you can kind of see it in the Nerf bar, but I don't know if it's enough to worry about or not. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do about that. If I want to bend it or not, I don't think so. I think it'll probably be okay, because you're going to be looking at it from up here. And when you come further back here, it's not noticeable really, so I think it'll be okay. I guess we can figure out some brackets now to mount it. So Jim came by from all the way over on the other corner of the shop, and he thinks it looks bent too. So we might have to do something about this. It's just because the body just ever so slightly makes like a smiley face. And I know my bar is straight, but it just looks like it was even worse when the jack was still under there. It looks like somebody put the jack underneath the Nerf bar and tried to lift the car up and bent it. And I know even though the bar is straight, everyone's just going to assume that the Nerf bar is bent. So I think what I'm going to do is call Kirby, who owns the car, and get him to come down, and we'll figure out if we want to put a little smiley face in this, or if it's okay like this, and that maybe Jim and I are just overthinking it. Okay, so Kirby came by and took a look at it, and we reconfigured a couple little things, and I think we've got it where he's happy with it, where we don't have to bend the bar, because he also didn't want to bend the bar as well. What we've done is I had this considerably closer to the body, so we've moved it back like 1.5 inches, and it's far enough back now that we both agree it looks good, so we're going to leave it. Which means we're going to move on to plan B now, or not plan B, part B. We got to somehow attach this to the car. So there's some factory, or not factory, but there's bolt holes already drilled and tapped here. And that's what Kirby wanted to use to mount this. Unfortunately, the bolts from this side and this side, I made a template and transferred it over here. And as you can see, they're totally different, but I think we can still make it work and it'll be okay. So what I've done now is I've got some measurements from here to the flat part of our bar here before the curve is 8.5 inches. So we're gonna mock this back up on the table at basically from here, the frame starts 8.5 inches back. And I've also got our frame outside dimension and inside dimension. And what that means is, like, from here to there on the other side is 40 inches, and from the inside to the other frame rail is 36.25. So we can kind of draw this out on the table and figure out a plan for a bracket, like 3/8 flat bar going in and then somehow coming down and attaching onto there. I've got our template back up on the table here, and I've measured from our center line out, and we've got our 40-inch outside and our 36.5 inside. So now this is where the inside of our tubing ends. So if we measure from there to 8.5 on here, that should give us where our frame rail begins, or ends, I guess, because it's the back of the car where the frame rails have been bobbed off there. 8.5. So we'll probably set the bar up here, and then we can get like an accurate tracing of the actual radius of the Nerf bar. Gonna trace our frame brackets to the bar. So here's our frame horn, and then we need to build a piece from here to this radius. I've taken some cardboard and made just a little cardboard mock-up of what our bracket needs to be. So if we take our radius gauge here, that is a 3-inch radius. So I think we'll use our template, go to the computer and draw this up, and then we can cut these out of some 3/8 plate. So I was able to upload the photo that we took and trace it on Fusion 360, and from there we can make a cut file. Got some 3/8 loaded on the table. Let's cut 2 pieces out and see how they fit. Have I ever mentioned how much I love this machine? Look at that, that's 3/8 plate it just cut out. This little bit of dross right there, gone. Both our little brackets are cut out. I've got them clamped in place. They're square, cross measured. It's all good. Same distance from here to here. From here to here, we're 40 and a 16th, and 40 and a 16th, or 40 and 1 tick, I should say, because some of the metric people get weird when I say 16th, even though they're all just names for ticks on the tape measure. So it's clamped down. Gonna put some good tacks on it, and then we can start making our next piece. I think we're making progress because we're down to 2 jack stands holding it up now instead of 3. When we get to no jack stands, we're done. So we're down to 1 jack stand now. I've taken some 1/4-inch scrap pieces and just clamped them between the bottom of the body and our 3/8 plates here, and that's going to give us a 1/4-inch space away, which I think is nice in there. So what I'm doing now is I took this little piece of plate and I put it in the press and squished it until it's got the same radius as our frame horn here. So now I've taken some paper and just used my fingers and rubbed on there, and I can see where our bolt holes are going to be. So then we can transfer this onto the inside radius of our little plate here and drill some holes. And hopefully, if it all transfers over okay, our plate will bolt on there. So I've taken our template and I've laid it backwards on our piece, and now we can mark our holes and drill them out. And if I didn't get this backwards, it should bolt right on. I went and made another one for this side. It's bolted in there, and I've got this thing squared up and as level as I can possibly get it. So I think we're ready to tack these pieces to here. We'll get that tacked in place, and then I might make like a little gusset to go in there as well, but we'll do that after. I wonder if I should take that out. That might be too much weight on our tack welds. I think I'll leave that, and then we'll pull this off and just weld it up on the bench. Actually, it does hold it. Cool. So I've cleaned all these ends up, kind of radius them off, and then our actual little ear itself, I radius that off as well. And yes, the bolt holes aren't symmetrical or centered in here because they just match the bolt holes that are in the back of the car, and whoever drilled those holes did not put them in the center. So that's what that's all about. Before I put this back on the car, I'm gonna sand this bar down and polish it up, and that way we can get a good visual of what it looks like. And if we gotta tweak anything still, then we can do that, and we won't be misled by, you know, textures and stuff like that. I've just sanded all the, I don't know what you call it, the pickling stuff, this black stuff. Just sanded all that off to kind of give it a good visual. And Kirby, who owns the car, he stopped by and we bolted it up and agreed that it looks nice. So I'm gonna make a little gusset now from this point over to here, just because that's, I'm sure it'd be okay, but that's a lot of weight that's gonna be hanging there and going over bumps over the years. It's just gonna keep, you know what I mean? So we'll just put a little gusset. I just traced our profile onto this piece of cardboard. So now we'll take a picture of it with the tape measure, upload it to the computer, and draw a gusset. Oh yeah, isn't that great? It fits on this side, which it should, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna cut a second one out. Now we can weld those on. We've got our gussets all welded in, ground down, smoothed out. I think it looks great. So does Jim. Jim's not here right now, but he agrees it looks great. So our next step is, remember how we left this a little bit long? We're going to cut that off at this line. This line kind of represents this area right here. So the part that used to hang out there that we cut off, I went down and saw my friend Ken the Machinist. Kind of sounds like a hitman, doesn't he? Ken the Machinist. Hey, you got a problem? Go see Ken the Machinist. Anyways, Ken machined this out of those cutoffs. So what we're going to do is take these little bullets. These bullets, by the way, are Kirby and I came up with this idea based on the front of this mirror and the little guy right here on the hood latch here. So that kind of is meant to tie in with all of that. And we're going to weld that on the front of the bar so that it ends just like that. It's going to be so streamlined, so slick, so fast, 2 mile per hour gain at Bonneville. It's going to be awesome. So we'll cut that off, weld those on there, and it's going to rule. Bam, there you go, Kirby. Nerf bar. How do you like that? I think it looks really good. I'm super stoked on these little bullet ends that Ken made. Those turned out really good. Ken the Machinist. Underneath, this little gusset with the details in it. I'm really happy with how that turned out. I think it looks very Art Deco, race car-y. This tailpipe, we realized after we mocked it up, was not the same height as that one, so we just moved it down a little bit, and we got the same distance in between there and there. It's far enough down and far enough back that the The smile that the body makes isn't noticeable and doesn't seem to mess with it. So yeah, I think it turned out splendid. Added a little bit of pizzazz to the back of Kirby's car. But Kirby's still not satisfied. Kirby thinks the back of this car needs more. So what did we do? We went and ordered up a brand new winter's quick change for it. So we're going to install this in the next video. So make sure to subscribe and hit notifications so that when that video comes out, you know all about it. Thanks everybody for watching. If you want to support this channel, please check out the website, lgspeedcustom.com. Get yourself some LG Speed and custom merch. Everyone that buys stuff off the website, thank you very much. Really, really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.